Hello, I'm Mary Ito, and welcome to the CRAM podcast. CRAM is an acronym for Communicating Research and More, which is what we try and do on this podcast. A lot of exciting research and groundbreaking ideas never reach the public, but they have the potential to change the way we think and act. Well, we've all experienced it. Someone's chasing us. We want to run, but we can't. It's as if our feet are stuck in cement and we're panicking because we can't escape the threat that's gaining ground. Or maybe it's exam time. We've got to get to class, but try as we might, we're confronted with one roadblock after another, and we're stressed because we may not make it. Or maybe we're on vacation, somewhere idyllic. It could be anywhere. Maybe it's another planet, and we're at peace. We're so happy. These are all dreams that many of us have had. Some are beautiful, some are scary, and some are, well, ho-hum, just part of everyday life. Dreams make up a significant part of our lives, since we spend about a third of our life sleeping. But many of us pay no heed to our dreams, and we think of that sleep time as our brain being in off mode, but it's not. Elizaveta Solomonova says sleep and dreams are social practices, and in fact, they're cognitive skills that we can use to better understand ourselves and our lives. Lisa is a cognitive scientist who teaches a course called The Science of Dreams at Concordia University in Montreal, and she's also a researcher with the Neurophilosophy Lab at McGill University. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I just love this topic. I've thought a lot about it, and I've kind of gone back to my own dreams as well. I want to start off and ask you, first of all, why do we dream?
It is yet still unknown.
Oh,
we don't really know. Dream scientists are trying to unravel the mysteries, the evolutionary purpose, the functions of dreams. But it is unclear still if there is any function whatsoever to dreaming. So there's still work for me to do.
Is it assumed, though, that we all dream?
Well, this is a difficult question because there's two extreme views on the matter. One view is that we always dream all the time and we just forget. And then another view is that, well, we don't really ever really dream, and we kind of like randomly make up stories as we wake up. Now, we know that if you wake people up from different stages of sleep, they're sometimes more and sometimes less likely to remember their dreams. We also know that some people never seem to remember their dreams, but they may learn to remember dreams. So it is unclear if everybody dreams. It seems as though most of us probably dream some of the time.
Okay, so yeah, let's just assume most of us dream some of the time. Do we know why we don't remember dreams?
This is a great question. Some researchers assume that we don't remember dreams because we forget. Then other philosophers think that, well, actually, not necessarily. It is entirely possible to have an experience that may not have any obvious content. For example, experiencing time passing or having what people call white dreams. So a feeling that you have dreamt, but you're not sure about what. And it's possible that there is just minimal experiences in sleep.
Yeah, because I was thinking so many people, that I talk to, we sometimes talk about, oh, we had this dream. And then a lot of people will say like, oh yeah, I remember some dreams, but I really don't remember dreaming. And that makes me think, is there possibly some reason connected for evolutionary benefit or for our survival that we forget dreaming?
Yes, it is really unclear. So first of all, in order to remember a dream, you need to pass into a different state of consciousness from sleep. So dream memories are very fragile and they're very susceptible to interference. It's very easy to just hear an alarm or remember this email you need to send, or wake up and panic because you're late, and then your dream memory will be gone. There are techniques to train yourself to remember dreams better, should you want to, and they seem to work quite robustly. So that's one answer. Another answer.
Before you go on, what would some of those techniques be to remember those dreams?
Well, to immediately write or dictate something. In other words, so even if you're not sure what the dream was, even if you're not sure if you had any particular content, to just pay attention to how your body feels, pay attention to what emotions arise, pay attention to any fragments of memories. And that creates a cognitive habit of trying and remembering your dreams. And then there's a very high chance that the next morning you're going to remember more, and the next morning you're going to remember more yet.
Oh, okay. I guess I've unwittingly done that because if I've woken up and I woke up from a dream that I particularly liked and I think, oh, I'm going to forget this later on in the day, I'll repeat it in my mind right then.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go over it.
Yeah. Rehearsing, paying attention to dreams, rehearsing, setting intention to remembering dreams is crucial. It is a skill like any other. Imagine you're commuting to work every day. That same day, if I ask you in the evening, who were you sitting to next on the bus? Are you going to remember? I've done this experiment with my undergraduate students many times. Most don't. It's not because you're not conscious when you're on a bus, it's just because you're not paying attention.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Now, okay, so I think you've kind of answered this because we really don't know the answer to why we dream, because I was wondering even, are dreams essential to life?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we assume most of us dream, then are they actually essential?
Yeah, this is really unclear. There are two theories out there that try to explain evolutionary purpose of dreaming. One is called threat rehearsal theory, which basically explains dreams as kind of a virtual reality for responding to threats. Right. So, so the more threatening dreams you have, the more you're fit then cognitively in waking life to deal with threats. That's one theory. Now, the more recent iteration of that theory is social simulation theory that says, okay, fine, maybe it's not just all about threats. Maybe it's just about other people. Maybe, because, well, basically hell is other people, I guess. It's cognitively demanding for us as species to be able to, understand theory of mind, understand what other people are thinking, make alliances, have relationships, form bonds, all that stuff. So the second iteration of this kind of evolutionary theory of dreams, social simulation theory, has to do with the idea that, those interactions don't need to be necessarily negative or positive or anything. It's just a variety of, we're just simulating and rehearsing a variety of social relations and sleep, which then makes our minds and our brains more capable to just dynamically adapt to facing other humans. That's the second evolutionary theory of dreaming. Other than that, the vast majority of researchers are actually agnostic to whether or not dreams are necessary for survival, because it does appear as though people who never remember their dreams are quite fine.
Okay, yeah, they're able to function every day.
More than that, they seem to be normal.
They seem to be normal. Okay. So, I was reading up on dreams in preparation for this interview, and I read somewhere that, negative emotions are more common in our dreams than positive emotions. Now, is that true?
This seems to be a myth. It seems to be not entirely true of reality. So I very often also do this in my classes at both McGill and at Concordia. I ask my students to tell me, okay, so close your eyes, sit still for a moment, and remember an impactful dream, any dream from any moment of your life. So they sit, they think about it, they remember a dream, and then I say, okay, great. So now raise your hand if your dream was negative. And vast majority of students, it is a negative dream. Okay. And then I ask them, the second part of this exercise is to, again, close your eyes and imagine and remember the most recent dream that you had, today or yesterday or whenever it was last time you remembered a dream. Okay. They get that. And then I ask them for how many it was negative, and it's just less than a third. Right. So we remember negative things much more. We sometimes remember negative things more vividly than we remember positive things. Negative dreams seems to be sometimes more impactful, right? It's much more impactful to remember that one time you were shooting zombies over a helicopter, right? Than the time you were dreaming about putting a pizza in a microwave.
Yeah, no, true enough. Well, okay. Yeah. So then, I mean, do dreams have a deeper meaning? Let's just say aside from maybe those banal ones, I mean, do they have a deeper meaning? And if so, can we interpret and analyze them?
Well, that is a $1 million question. And I think it's the same.
I seem to be asking a lot of $1 million questions. I don't know. I guess it's
That is
still a
perfect.
big area of research. Yeah.
Yes. So I think the answer to this question. Okay, I have a long answer and a short answer. The long answer is, understanding meaning of dreams is the same as understanding meaning of life or love or friendship or any form of conscious experience, right? And that meaning is probably going to be individualized. It's probably going to be culturally patterned. It's probably going to be dependent on your history. It's probably going to be dependent on your cognitive profile. Okay, that's one thing. So yeah, understanding meaning of dreams is, well, does anything have meaning? That's the first question, right? So that's kind of
now we're really getting philosophical.
Yes, we are getting philosophical. I mean, I think it's inevitable anytime you ask a question of meaning. So, I mean, some approaches do consider dreams to be basically like language, right? Certainly, starting from psychoanalytic tradition, there's an idea that you can decipher something that is hidden inside the dream. And, many techniques exist. Certainly psychoanalysis is one of very powerful techniques of interpreting dreams. But then contemporary psychotherapy uses multiple different techniques to interpret dreams as well. And then you get traditional techniques. Pretty much most human societies have some form of dream interpretation in them. It's often religious. So religious authorities are often given the right in the social world to interpret the dreams. It's sometimes, the shamans, the priests, the imams, the rabbis, right? Whoever has a particular knowledge of, let's say, the spiritual realm. And then there's secular, contemporary dream interpretation techniques that exist. Now, whether or not using a dream interpretation technique will tell you the true meaning of your dream, that is an impossible question to answer. But the fact that those techniques do something to us as humans, then that's pretty much unquestionably true, right? So if you have a spiritual dream and you go see your imam or your rabbi or your priest, and they tell you something that is significant to you on your spiritual path, then that will be a very meaningful dream, right? Regardless of whether or not that was the true direct line to God or not, right? Same thing if you are in therapy and you are recounting a dream to your therapist, and through this dream you're able to come to some form of a resolution or an insight, or to decreasing anxiety, or to making sense of your life. Well, that's great. That means that it worked. We know from research about psychotherapy in dreams that using dreams in psychotherapy promotes what we call therapeutic alliance. In other words, the kind of connection between client and therapist. We also know that dreams provide sort of a safe space for you to talk about your traumas or your concerns or your anxieties in a more symbolic way, right? It could be difficult to very specifically say, oh, well, here are the 5 things that, bother me about my mother. But it could be easier to come to a therapist and say, I had this dream and there were aliens and demons and stuff, and then realize that one of the demons was my mother. So it creates a kind of a symbolic distance through which one can interpret feelings, basically, feelings and emotions.
Yeah. Okay, so there are many, I guess, dream analysis techniques. Can you talk about a couple of them that people could maybe use at home in their own lives?
At home, yes. Yes, no, absolutely. For sure. I mean, working with your own dreams can be hugely beneficial and also just really fun for you. Now, one word of caution, however, is that just as with any important introspective techniques, it could be psychotherapy, it could be dreaming, could be meditation, could be psychedelics. Going deep inside your own psyche can unleash trauma. So whatever you're basically coming in with your own mind, however it is. So whatever stuff is there that is perhaps problematic, challenging, or difficult can possibly resurface as you're working with your dreams. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't mean that it may be the right time to do this kind of work, or the right context. So, should you feel kind of uneasy working with your dreams, maybe don't.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is a kind of
A
a
word of
general,
warning. Yeah.
yeah, word of warning, but also it's not just a kind of a scary warning. It's more like, well, you are working with your mind, and your mind will tell you what's in it. And so it can be very reassuring. It also can be very enlightening, and it can be surprising. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
so you might discover things that you kind of forgot about. Yes, but for vast majority of people, working with dreams can be hugely beneficial, really fun. So, I mean, okay, here's two things you can do at home. One thing for sure is try and remember your dreams. Now, philosophically, it's a very interesting question. So, as soon as people start keeping a dream diary, they typically tend to start remembering their dreams in more and more detail. And the kind of philosophical question is that, well, are we revealing something that was there and you were just forgetting, or are we creating a new kind of dreams? Because you are now primed and you are interested in it and you are introspectively attuned to your own dream life. So usually what we recommend is, well, it's very simple. Keep a dream diary, right? Very simple. Before going to bed, set an intention. You tell yourself, yeah, I want to remember my dream. I'll pay attention to it. I will, wake up and write it down or dictate it or whatever works technologically
Right.
best. So that's the first
Oh,
thing
can
to
can I
do.
just stop? Okay, I got to stop you there. Okay, that's so interesting because I think what you were saying in that second part is that how do you know if the more you're conscious of what you dream, you're actually influencing your dreaming now,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's all.
Right.
I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah. That's really, no, I hadn't thought of that. Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, exactly. So the idea, and sometimes we call this dream incubation, very much like, almost like in mystical terms, but here in a very easygoing terms. So before going to bed, we also often recommend that you not only kind of promise yourself you'll remember, but also remember any dream whatsoever that you've had at any point in your life that you vividly can recall. So
Oh,
basically get into the feeling of what it's like for you to be a dreamer, right? What it feels like for you to have dreams. And then just go to bed. And then in the morning, well, I mean, it depends what your life is like, right? If you can wake up without an alarm, that'd be great. But, most of us can't. But basically get into a habit, right? Get into a habit of just like, lingering in bed a little longer, connecting with your dream life, right? Writing down literally anything, even if there's nothing, you say, there's nothing, but I feel, I don't know, tension in my belly, right? There is nothing, but for some reason, I'm thinking about the flower shop on the street next to me, right? There is
hmm,
nothing, but I really, really, really want to call my best friend. So just kind of get into this kind of habit of just paying
yeah.
attention to what it feels like to wake up. Yeah. And then you will
Okay.
definitely remember more and more dreams,
Yeah.
certainly. Yeah.
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 Any other technique that might be simple for people to do?
Yeah. There's also techniques that people can do together. So, and this is really fun, kind of a group dream interpretation techniques. One of my favorite one, it was developed by a researcher and a psychoanalyst, Montague Ullman. So he proposed the technique and is known right now in dream research and dream circles as the Ullman technique. So the idea is that you get together with a bunch of friends, and one of you brings a dream. So the dreamer recounts a dream, everybody listens, and then you're gonna go around the room, and well, people may ask you some questions. People may ask to clarify what the dream was about, and then eventually, all the members of the group, except for the dreamer, start interpreting the dream as if it was their own. So in other words, they're not talking about the dreamer. Oh yeah, of course you had that dream because you're a nervous wreck and we know it. No, instead they say, oh, if I had that dream, that would reveal my anxiety about this particular thing, right? Or because I had this experience in my childhood, that dream to me would mean something
Ah,
specific. So in other words, everybody gets to be a little vulnerable, but nobody gets to feel entirely naked. Right.
right.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it is kind of a shared vulnerability, but it can be playful, right? You can say, well, yeah, you can say jokes, you can say whatever, because it's not directed at the dreamer. It's kind of directed
Yeah.
at
Gee,
oneself.
and you know what I love about that is the dreamer, just by relating their dream, is putting themselves in a bit of a vulnerable position at the beginning,
Yes,
right? But then because everybody now interprets it, they're also putting themselves out there and being vulnerable.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
And
really
it's really cool. And because, of course,
Mhm.
everybody can censor themselves, right? Nobody needs to reveal more than they want to.
Yeah,
People can have their own boundaries, because, if you have a group of about 8 people, well, you're going to have 7 interpretations. They're going to be 7 things that are going to maybe stick, maybe not. And then the dreamer in the end can reflect on it and kind of give feedback and say what resonated and what didn't. But the dreamer also can just like keep some stuff to themselves, right? They can just say that was amazing, and was some insight that they never could see. And maybe some things just resonate because of our shared humanity, because of our shared experiences, and you never know sometimes, and you never know who you had this similar childhood with,
yeah, yeah.
And yeah,
So have you seen that work? Like, have you been a part of that where you've had that in group sessions? This almond technique?
I've only done that once, to be honest, with friends at home.
Oh. No, because
Yes.
did it work? Like, was it really
Oh yeah,
engaging? It
it was
sounds
really
it.
great. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was really, really great. Yes, absolutely. Yes, but I very often do that with friends, just one on one. Not necessarily as a technique, but sort of just talk about my dreams, share dreams, and react to theirs. And I do like to adopt this. If this dream were my own, this is what I would feel about this.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So
Oh,
I
okay,
kind of
that's
I
really
kind of
cool.
often use it, but not necessarily in group settings. Just because it's just such a nice thing to reflect on shared symbolism and reflect on shared
Mhm.
experiences.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, there's also something I want to bring up that I'm really curious about, I mean it's on social media and people say that you can learn this, so I want to put this to you. What is lucid dreaming, and can we
Hmm.
actually learn how to do it?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, you can learn how to do it. And lucid dreaming is basically a dream in which you're aware of the fact that you're dreaming. So, I don't know if you've seen Inception, movies like
Yes,
that, right? Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
I loved it. I loved
So
Inception.
yeah,
Yeah.
so the idea is that you kind of wake up to your dream, and in your dream, then other things are possible. So for example, just knowing that it's a dream, can let you perhaps remember it more, can let you watch it with a certain distance, because it's kind of happening to you, but it's also happening to your dream self. You kind of lose what we would call suspension of disbelief, right? You're simultaneously aware of where you are in terms of just your actual body, and you have this other body doing other things. So that's kind of a minimal, requirement for lucid dreaming, just knowing that you're dreaming. And then
Okay.
some people are able to develop different degrees of control over the environment. So, it's very often that people try to fly or have erotic, romantic experiences, or I don't know, imagine themselves on Mount Everest, or conjure up people that they would like to hang out with, that kind of stuff. So the degrees of control can be quite extensive. Some people are able to control their dreams quite a lot, and others not so much. And it's also very interesting that the dreams almost never yield completely to our conscious control. So, even if you're
Ah.
trying to do something, sometimes the dream just won't let you. And this is also really fun to kind of discover your own boundaries that your own mind puts up against, well, you.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? That is so wild, because if we are able to control what we dream, I mean, that's a whole other life that we can have, right?
Indeed. Yes, indeed, that
Yeah.
can be a whole other life. A
So, and
parallel
you said that
reality.
yeah, how do you, and so you said you can actually learn, I can learn how to do this. Like, how do I
Probably.
learn how to do, okay. How,
Yes, there's many techniques, but what they all have in common is basically learning to recognize the signs that you're dreaming, kind of like turning your reflective self-awareness on, right? And the way I tend to think about sleep and dreaming and wakefulness is that your cognitive technique, your cognitive skills, your cognitive capacities are there in wake and in sleep. So in other words, if you are able to do something in wake, you may be able to do certain things in sleep, and vice versa. So, for example, in order to learn lucid dreaming, very often what all the techniques have in common is your ability to very sincerely ask yourself in wake whether or not you're dreaming right this moment. So just stop whatever you're doing and ask yourself, am I dreaming? And give yourself some time to actually come up with answers. Like, how do you know? What are the signs? How do you know you're not dreaming right this moment? And it sounds like one of those mind-blowing, crazy questions, and it kind of is. It is one of those,
Yeah.
very
It is
far,
deeply
far out.
philosophical. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's far out, and some people find it very unsettling. But at the same time, you can. So usually, for example, in dreams can be very unstable. In dreams, things flow one into the other, and certain things are harder to do in dreams than in waking life. So, for example, working memory in dreams is really altered. So very often, we recommend doing something simple like look at the palm of your hand and look at all the
Right.
lines. Just like look at it,
Yeah.
then just like hide it behind your back, and then look at it again. If the lines didn't change, you're probably not dreaming. If you're dreaming, it's very likely that that the lines on your hand would have changed. Or, try to find
Oh.
something to read. If you have a book laying around, same thing, open the book, read a sentence, close it, look away, open it again. If it's the same, chances are you're not dreaming. If it's different, well, you're definitely dreaming.
Ah.
So,
What
yeah.
about also, do we tend not to focus in on like minute detail in our dreams, in minutiae? I don't know. I tend to I feel that my dreams are quite vague. They're not really highly detailed where I notice specific things. Or is that just me?
I mean, I don't know if that's just you. It happens
Mm.
to have detailed dreams, but it rarely happens that you will maintain the same details in place. Because
Okay.
basically, in dreams, our minds are kind of winging it, right? Our minds are basically making up a world wherever you look, but it's kind of not really there. So, in other words, some philosophers, for example, think that basically dreaming is attention. Like whatever you're not attending to in your dream doesn't exist. And this is why this kind of repeated training technique, priming yourself to check if you're dreaming, it becomes a habit, right? If you do it, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times a day, then at some
Right.
point you may do it. You may do it in your sleep. You
Oh,
may
okay.
do it. Oh, I need to check.
Has this been proven? Have you done
Yes,
experiments? Yeah.
yes. People have done experiments on this. Yes, yes.
So what happened with when you did this?
Well, for me, of course, I'm not a very good lucid dreamer, so
No, no.
I
I
would.
mean, with students. Like, you were actually able to teach your participants like how
Yeah,
to
not
lucid dream?
me. I did not
But
do such experiments, but my colleagues, yes, absolutely. Colleagues, there's a lot of really cool lucid dreaming research out there right now. Particularly some colleagues from Northwestern University, Karen Konkoly and Ken Paller. They managed to not only teach people lucid dreaming, but also to have people in the dream communicate back with researchers in the lab. So they would take people into the lab, teach them a very simple lucid dreaming technique. So they would actually do it. They would actually be able to become lucid in their sleep, and then they would whisper ever so softly a math problem while they are in a lucid dreaming state. So I don't know, 5 minus 3, and then they would have to answer from their dream. So when you are in what we call rapid eye movement sleep, your body is
what?
paralyzed.
What? You're
Yeah,
kidding me. They
yeah,
gave them a math equation while they're sleeping and they could answer it.
yeah.
And they really were dreaming. Like they
Yes.
were not, they were sleeping.
Yes. You can't fake sleep with EEG.
That's crazy.
Hmm.
That is just, oh my goodness. No, because I think about the implications of that. Like, well, they could be positive and they can be negative too, right? Because if you have somebody who's up to no good and they're whispering things in someone's ear, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That, that's interesting.
Yes, there are
Mm.
questions. There was a controversy in dream research community recently during the pandemic where a Super Bowl commercial was using, well, Coors beer was being advertised during Super Bowl's commercial using this kind of like dream induction technique. They were basically suggesting that during the night you play certain sounds and those sounds should make you dream about what, it wasn't explicitly coarse beer, but it was, I forget what it is. There was something like a stream and a forest, or kind of prompting particular dreams by basically sensory stimulation. And so some dream researchers got kind of worried about precisely this, the ethical implications of, well, now inserting commercials into our dreams. Um, I wouldn't worry quite yet,
Hmm.
because it's very, very hard to manipulate dreams. We've tried all sorts of things in the lab, and most of the times the minds do what the minds do anyway. So just because you can answer a math problem doesn't mean you're going to believe it, right? Um,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
it's not yet
Okay.
clear that you're particularly more susceptible. This is not Brave New World, This is not the kind of learning in your sleep. This is not exactly the kind of propaganda machine that will change the way that you think. But certainly the ubiquity of various forms of propaganda, including advertisement in the wake, that what kind of bothers me at this moment significantly more
Yeah,
than
yeah.
doing that in dreaming, because dreams are kind of anarchic. Imagine, wherever you're sleeping, chances are you're exposed to so much stimulation anyway. Maybe your neighbor's coughing, maybe the garbage truck is passing. There's all sorts of sensory incorporation into sleep. And I wouldn't quite yet worry about it being quite so simple, but
Yeah.
certainly anything that engineers or messes with our imagination is certainly
Yeah, yeah.
susceptible to bad stuff as well as good stuff.
And can I ask you, so with the experiments that have been done teaching participants to lucid dream, how fast were they able to learn this skill?
Oh, it really depends. There's a huge interpersonal variability. Yeah, some people. So even the study where they were able to have this kind of two-way communication with lucid dreamers, the success rate was pretty low. Now, what was
Okay.
mind blowing was that it was possible at all.
Right.
Right, that fact in itself, and that it was
Yeah.
more than one person.
Yeah.
It was a few people who were able to answer
Yeah.
those math problems. So the fact that it's possible is amazing, but there's a huge interpersonal variability. Some people seem to be just naturally lucid dreamers from basically birth, and others take a very long time to learn. And it's just, I feel like it's like any other cognitive technique, like meditation or like sustained
Mm,
attention or like self awareness or any sort of thing like this. I think it just really depends on a combination between your own predisposition, your own cognitive profile. Are you already an introspective person? Do you have an easy time paying attention to your own thoughts? How
right.
about your own metacognition? So cognition about cognition. Can you understand your own emotions? Can you understand other people's emotions? Right. So there's a lot of these different things. So we don't know,
Yeah.
exactly how long it would take you specifically to start lucid dreaming.
So I've got to ask you, I don't know what level of lucid dreaming this is, but when I was talking to a friend about doing this interview and I was telling her about lucid dreaming, she said to me, "Oh, yeah, I do that all the time." And I
Hmm.
said, "Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that." She goes, "Yeah, yeah." And in fact, she said, "There's one dream that I particularly like where I'm on vacation. And before I go to bed, I can actually prime myself to dream that dream. And then when I'm in the dream, she said, not always, but I can control it. I can sort of change up the setting or what happens." And I thought, oh, okay, that's amazing. You can make yourself dream a certain dream and then control it.
Some people can. Yeah, no, absolutely. So here's basically a combination of two things we've talked about in this podcast. The dream incubation. So she decides to dream about a certain thing, kind of sets the intention before going to bed and says, this is what's going to happen. I really want, to dream about this. And some people are very successful. And the second thing as well, that when that happens, I'll realize that it's a dream. Right. So lucid dreaming, for example, it's easier to learn if you have recurrent dreams. And they don't need to be good or bad, just anything recurrent. If you constantly or often are dreaming about, well, I don't know, this vacation place, you can just kind of keep telling yourself, next time I'm there, I should remember it's a dream. And it will give me opportunities then to do, well, the fun things that lucid dreaming can do. Right. Yeah. But you can do this for many other things. So a lot of people use dream incubation to solve problems. They would say, um, I don't know, I have this burning existential question. I don't know how to solve this personal problem. I want to have a dream about it. And then sometimes dreams just kind of, bring you an answer, often in a very symbolic form. It doesn't have to be quite so in your face. And sometimes dreams kind of, resist your attempts at controlling them. It's very, very interesting. But very often, that's what people do before going to bed. They're going to say, okay, I really need to figure out, there's like two choices I need to make, which one is the right one, and kind of really sincerely basically ask your mind to, well, help you in your dream. And then they may wake up and kind of have an insight and be like, okay, this seems to be a more reasonable choice.
I forgot to ask you this question because you sort of hinted at it, but I know there are some people who wonder about whether or not you can actually learn while you're sleeping. And I mean, I don't know if this is still a big thing, but I remember when they would have these tapes, you could learn a language. You just run this at night while you're sleeping and, you'll be speaking some language in the morning. I mean, I'm being facetious here, but is it possible to actually learn things while you sleep?
Well, now that you ask, it is a very lively subdomain of sleep research at the moment. There's a technique
Ah,
that is called targeted memory reactivation. And the idea is that we know that certainly in animals and most likely in humans, when you learn something during the day, your brain kind of replays it on its own, just neurally, just not necessarily in dreaming. Dreams almost never replay lived experiences. That pretty much almost never happens. Dreams remix old memories with new memories and, create new scenarios. Dreams are very rarely replaying experiences. However, um, your brain seems to do that. And so researchers, in a very clever way, thought that, well, okay, we've seen this in rodents. We know that a mouse or a rat, when it runs through a maze, it has a particular pattern of neural activation. Then it replays it forward, backward, faster, slower during sleep. What if we can sort of target that moment with basically conditioning? So what they're doing with humans right now, and this is super fun, you would come to a lab and do a task. Would be a memory, usually a memory task. I don't know, spatial memory or verbal memory or learning a language, exactly like you mentioned. Learning new words. And while you're doing
mhm.
that, there's either a sound or a smell presented with you in the lab, and then they would, turn on the same sound or put in the same smell with you in a room as you're sleeping, hoping that that would stimulate those
Oh.
neural representations, those kind of encodings to rehearse a little bit more robustly during the night. And then you get retested, and it seems as though those people who are cued in this manner during the night are performing better on those memory tasks in the morning. So it is possible to kind of give yourself a bit of a boost in learning in sleep. I don't know if you can learn new stuff, however. So that's why I'm saying that, it's still not
Oh,
quite as nefarious or dangerous.
right,
But yes, you
right,
can
right.
you can sort of help yourself to remember some stuff better. And, why not try this at home? That sounds fun.
So, you also referred to the cultural, and social implications, right, of sleep and dreams. Like, what do you mean by that?
hmm Yeah, it's really super interesting to me to think about both sleep and dreaming as practices and not just as things that happen. Right. So, and this is a kind of an interesting cultural moment because we're looking at, well, pluralist world. The world is getting much more, let's say, connected through the internet. It's much easier to just ask people how things are on another, end of the planet. And so, one thing that is interesting is that a lot of the time in our culture, we get recommendations, right? Physicians and scientists would give you like prescriptions, like how you should sleep. And the truth is that we don't know what's the right human sleep. We just don't know. There's no way to know. And the reason for that is that the kind of typical recommendation that you should sleep 8 hours in a, in a well ventilated dark room all by yourself is basically a product of, well, post-industrial capitalism in which we live right now. Or the idea that children should have a bedtime and should sleep through the night at a certain age, same idea. The only reason for your toddler to have a bedtime is because mom used to go to work in the morning, right? So then they need to get to daycare and they cannot be sleeping until noon, right? So it's really, really interesting things because we basically, and I'm not saying this is wrong or right. I'm just saying that is that sleep as a dynamic adaptation to a niche which we inhabit. So our social and our cultural niche has particular constraints, right? So for example, if I need to wake up early, well, then I need to go to bed early. That's just a reality. And if I can't nap at work, that means that I need to get all my 24-hour needs of sleep in within one chunk. Now, animals don't sleep in one chunk. Some people don't sleep in one chunk. If you look across human communities, in some places, people co-sleep, for example, with their children, with their siblings until basically prepubescent age. And if you look at North America, well, there's this expectation that the child should be able to self-soothe somehow on their own at the age of 3 months. So there's a vast variation in how people sleep, not just between societies, but within a society. The kind of coveted, 8-hour comfortable sleep by yourself is available to some people, but it's not available to caregivers, to new mothers, to people who work, funny shifts, to a lot of different kind of various, gendered and social statuses. So my interest in this and that, well, that means if there's such a variety of sleeping, that means that very likely this is a dynamic process that has to do with not only the biological imperative to sleep, but also social expectations of what it's like to have a good sleep. And for dreaming,
Mm-hmm.
the implications are, well, are you paying attention? Are you not paying attention? Are you sharing your dream when you're waking up? Are you sharing it with your partner? Do you have a dream group? Do you feel like when you've had a dream that is perhaps transcendental or mind blowing, or maybe you spoke to God, does that bring you then to a dream interpretation specialist, whoever that might be in your culture? It may be a psychoanalyst, it may be a priest. It really depends on where you live and what the culture around you tells you about your own expectations. Yeah. So we are in our neurophilosophy lab, we have this kind of interest and this program of studying dreams and sleep through a social cultural perspective as processes, basically, as dynamic regulatory processes within an individual, but also within a larger group.
Oh, so and you're using participants are you using participants from all over the world
Yes.
for this? And what are you asking them?
Yes, we are running a study right now. We basically we have it in multiple languages available in the moment. Are probably going to translate it into more languages as the time goes on. And we're basically asking people to describe to us what their sleep is like. Right. So instead of giving people predetermined questionnaires, which we also do, of course, because we're scientists, but predetermined questionnaires have certain expectations built into them. So, for example, let's say you are an extreme night person. Let's say you work at night and you sleep during the day and you're basically fine and you're well adapted. That totally happens. And then you're given a questionnaire and it says, how many hours did you sleep at night? You're going to say 0. But they're not asking you how many hours you slept in 24-hour period, right? So a lot of variation is lost in many pre-made validated questionnaires. So we're asking people to tell us what it's like to sleep well for them, what it's like to sleep poorly, how would they like to sleep? Do they like to sleep with other people or alone? Does it have to be a particular environment? What about dreaming? Do they share their dreams? Do they want to share their dreams? Do they like dreaming? Do they want to change the way they dream? So all those things we're asking people. And yes, please feel free to contribute. We will share a link for the study somewhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. We'll put the link up in our show notes.
Thank you.
Why is it that dreams and research in dreams, it doesn't seem to get a lot of respect? I don't.
Well,
no, that's my thinking. I don't think, you know what I mean?
Yes. Of course, yeah, of course, I know what you mean. When I started my graduate school and I wanted to study dreams and meditation and philosophy, people told me, like, why do you want to study the 3 things that are going to make you look like you're not a serious scientist?
There you go.
Yes, it was a serious bias. And I mean, even today, probably, if you go to a bookstore, for those of you who still go to bookstores, books on dreams are not going to be next to books on the brain. They're going to be next to books on like tarot cards and, some kind of occult stuff. That is true. However, when I graduated, it seemed as though there was a lot of interest suddenly in consciousness more broadly, in meditation, certainly, in psychedelics and in dreaming. So right now, I feel like we're in a much more accepting scientific climate. I think consciousness, particularly right now with AI, right? Suddenly people are asking
Mm-hmm.
themselves that question: what is it, to be a subjective entity? What is it to have intelligence? What is it to have thoughts or subjectivity more broadly? So right now, dreaming is not quite so marginal anymore as it used to be. But yeah, I think it's a cultural bias, right? We live in a society which doesn't necessarily encourage us to share our dreams, or we have this phrase: "It's just a dream." Like, don't worry, you had a nightmare. It's just a
That's
dream.
right.
No big deal. It's not yours. And so adopting a different perspective that dreams are actually yours, and there's a way for you to get acquainted with them, to know yourself better through them, to perhaps kind of reintegrate them back into the social fabric of our exchanges. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to how we're used to thinking about our minds and our own kind of private versus public thoughts
Yeah.
and experiences.
Yeah. And speaking of nightmares, we didn't even get into that and other sleep disorders. So I invite you back so we can talk about that, Lisa.
Thank you. With pleasure. Thanks,
Yeah.
Mary.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's Elizaveta Solomonova. She's a cognitive scientist who's done a lot of research on dreams, and she teaches a course called The Science of Dreams at Concordia University in Montreal. She's also a researcher with the Neurophilosophy Lab at McGill University. And of course, we're going to have her back to talk about nightmares and other sleep disorders. If you'd like to know more about her work and also the study that she's doing right now, maybe you'd like to participate, please check out our show notes. That is it for today's Cram podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Please follow us on social. Our handle is @CramIdeas. Thanks for joining us, and see you back here again.